Day 16. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Rivka Edery, author of Spatial. In the worked example on day 14, something happened that I passed over quickly, and today we go back for it. I drew a map, 4 cards in a tight knot near the center, dense, compressed, urgent looking on the page. And then I turned them over, and they read as settled, calm, a situation already known and already being handled. The geometry said one thing, the cards said another. I logged the mismatched and moved on, and I said one sentence about it. They did not fully agree, and that is a real observation. Today we take that seriously because it is going to keep happening to you, and there is a right way and a wrong way to handle it. And the wrong way is very attractive. Here is the question the whole session turns on. If you read geometry before meaning, and you have for 16 days, then what do you do when the meaning arrives and contradicts the geometry? Something has to give. Which one? I'm going to give you a real answer. Not a comfortable one. And the answer is not the geometry is always right. That would be a doctrine, and doctrines are what this method exists to replace. Before I answer, I want to point something out, and it's going to be familiar because I did this to you on day 9 with the void. The question was always there. Open your log, step 5. Integration notes, and read the prompt, which has been on every page since day 1. After completing your reading, record what surfaced, what confirmed the geometry, what surprised you. 2 questions, and I want you to be honest about which one you have been answering. The first one, which confirmed the geometry, is easy and satisfying. You go looking for agreement and you find it because agreement is always findable if you're willing to be generous about what counts. And it feels good to write. It is a small report of success. The second, what surprised you, is harder. It requires you to admit that the reading did not go the way the map predicted, that your geometry made a claim and the cards partially declined it. And I suspect that for 16 days, that second field has been thin. A few words, or blank, or filled with something that is not actually a surprise at all. I was surprised by how well it all fit together, which is not it's not a surprise, it is a confirmation wearing a surprise's coat. The workbook has been asking you about the mismatch since day 1. It built the question into step 5. It has been waiting for you to notice that the second half of that field is the more valuable half. Today, you start filling it in properly. So, why would they disagree? There are 3 possibilities, and I want you to hold all 3 because the temptation is to leap immediately to the third and most flattering one. Possibility 1, you misread the geometry. The map was drawn correctly, but you interpreted its shape wrongly. This happens constantly, and it is the most likely explanation early on. Here is a concrete instance, and it is the one from day 14. I saw 4 cards in a tight knot, and my mind supplied dense, compressed, urgent. But tightness is not urgency. Tightness is proximity. A tight cluster can mean things are converging violently, or it can mean they are integrated, settled, working together as one unit. The geometry said these 4 are functioning as a single thing. I heard these 4 are in crisis. The geometry did not lie to me. I overread it. Possibility 2, you misread the cards. The cluster narrative was forced. You made the group cohere because day 6 told you to read it as one unit, and so you produced a unity that was not there. Possibility 3. They genuinely differ. The layout is telling you two things at once, and the tension between them is the reading, not a fault in it. Now, here is the discipline of today, and it is a hard one. You cannot tell which of the three it is from a single session, not reliably, not by thinking harder about it, and not by consulting your intuition, which is precisely the faculty under examination. So what you do not get to do is pick. Here is the instruction, and it will feel unsatisfying. And the unsatisfaction is the point. Do not resolve the tension. You're going to want to. A session that ends in disagreement feels unfinished, like a sentence without a verb. And so you will want to decide which one was really right, so that the tension produces one clean answer that you can write down and be done with. That decision is not available to you. And here's what makes it worse than merely unavailable. Making it destroys the only evidence the mismatch contained. Think about it carefully. You have two records, a geometry that said one thing and a set of cards that said another. That is two data points, and they are in tension. That tension is a fact, and it is a fact about tonight's session, and it is written down. Now, suppose you resolve it. You decide the geometry was right, and the cards were subtle. What do you have in your log? One data point, and it agrees with you. You did not discover which was right. You chose which was right, using the same mind that produced both readings with no external check whatsoever, and you converted a genuine tension into a fake agreement. The log now says the session was coherent. It was not. It was contradictory, and the contradiction is gone, and you removed it. So, record both. Record that they disagreed. Do not adjudicate. The reading for tonight is, the geometry said settled and compressed. The card said calm and known. These do not fully align. That is your entry. It is honest, it is complete, and it is unfinished. And unfinished is the correct state for a thing that is not finished. Now, I said you cannot adjudicate, and that stands. But that does not mean the two records are equal evidence, and the book is precise about this in a way that resolves the whole problem. From the map freeze, and this is the sentence, material logged before the flip carries more evidential weight than material logged after. For the same reason, an entry made before a sitter's confirmation carries more weight than one made after it. Look at what that is actually saying, because it is not what you might expect. It is not saying the geometry is truer. It is not claiming that space is more real than symbol, or that the map has some privilege access to reality that the cards lack. That would be a doctrine, and I have no interest in selling you one. It is saying something much narrower and much stronger. The geometry was recorded under stricter conditions. When you wrote the geometry sentence, you did not know what the cards were. You could not have bent it toward an outcome because no outcome existed yet. It was written blind. When you wrote the cluster narrative, you were looking at the cards. You knew, and everything you knew was available to shape what you wrote. Not through dishonesty, but through the ordinary and unstoppable operation of a mind that has information. So the two entries are not equally protected. One was made under conditions that made contamination impossible. The other was made under conditions that made contamination effortless. That is an evidentiary rule, not a metaphysical one. It says nothing about which is true. It says only which one you are entitled to trust more when they conflict. And it says so for the same reason a court prefers a statement made before the witness knew what was at stake. So what does the entry actually look like? Let me show you mine from the day 14 session. Confirmed. The void proportion held. Wide channel. No mediation. Exactly as mapped. That is a genuine confirmation, and it goes in the first half of the field. Surprised. The cluster read as settled, not urgent. The map suggested compression. The cards did not deliver it. These do not align. And then the third line, which is the one most people never write. Waiting. Geometry logged pre-flip, blind. Cluster narrative logged post-flip. Do not resolve. Carry both forward. Look at what that entry does and does not do. It does not pick a winner. It does not say the geometry was right and I misread the cards. And it does not say the cards corrected a bad map. It leaves the tension standing exactly as it stood on the table. But it also does not pretend the two are equivalent. It notes which one was recorded blind because in 3 weeks, when I'm comparing sessions, that is the fact I will need. If I find that my geometry consistently predicts urgency, that the cards consistently decline, then I have learned something enormous about how I read maps. And I will only be able to see that if I have preserved the mismatches rather than resolving them one by one into false agreements. No verdict, no smoothing, the disagreement is the entry. And notice, this takes about 30 seconds to write and it requires no insight whatsoever. It requires only that you decline to tidy up.